Welcome to the Recap Book Chat. We are a mother and daughter duo
conversing about books over a cup of joe.
seeking truth to help us glow.
Ready, set, let's grow!
And welcome to the Recap Book Chat. Today we are diving in to the Book of Esther. We're continuing our journey through the Bible and kind of doing a deep dive on each book instead of just the big overview, which we have done in the past.
Yes, this is much easier in book by book and giving each one its due diligence, or trying to at least. So the author, of course, is God, and the background, because just a little background is that this is during the time of Ezra and Nehemiah, and these are the people, Esther and company. These are the people that stayed in Persia. And they went back, we talked about that before, that they didn't all go back. They went back in shifts, and some decided to stay in Persia. And that's this group that we're talking about. And this is the book of Esther. And I heard a man preaching, and he said the reason God's not mentioned in Esther is because he wasn't in their outward lives. And there's a heaviness in that, but they're living for God year after year after year. That becomes clear the way Mordecai's relationship with Esther. But I think that's why his name's not there, but he's all over the Book of Esther. And I love that. It's kind of like hidden.
I like how Tara Lee Cobble says it, because this is the unique Bible because, like you said, God is never named once. But Tara Lee Cobble says, you see him in the shadows of every scene. And that's true.
And this is another unique thing about Esther is it's not in the Dead Sea Scrolls, the only book. So there's some uniqueness too. Because you could say, well, it's named after a woman. Well, Ruth is named after a woman. So we have that. But all books were in the Dead Sea Scrolls, but this one.
So that is interesting. So, like you said, this is set in the Persian Empire, the capital, Susa, I think is how you pronounce it, 100 years after the Babylonian exile. So give us the overview. What's kind of the main, the overview of this book, the summary?
What I always ask the boys, what stuck with you? What sticks with me in this is that you may every day, we talk about being consistent and how consistency is key. Every day you get up, you have your Bible study, you pray. Every day you do this. And then one day you meet that person who needs to meet Jesus and you can talk to them. It's just like Esther is every day they're doing this, and then who's to say that this is why you're here? So you can ask yourself that with every, it's the prep work. A lot is going into this. And when people say, well, I kind of got away from my Bible study, it's like when people get away from something, there's this shame in returning. But shame is just you're listening to the wrong narrator in your head. That's what Satan wants you to think. But you could say, okay, good, I'm going to straighten up and go back and start studying. And to me, I heard a guy say that shame is when you're listening to the wrong narrator, because God never wants you to have shame. He wants you to have redemption and turnaround. And this story is one of that because it's a hard life. And then you've got people like Haman who want to make it harder. So I think Esther tells us there's going to be struggles in life. You stay faithful to God, and in the end, or whenever your day comes, you'll be prepared. I mean, she was prepared. She made that choice. But don't we all have that choice to make? And we have to make that choice. And I hope we choose like Esther and we stand up. What about you?
Well, we got to back up because we're putting the cart before the horse. So the overview, just because there might be someone who might not know what the choice is. So we got to back up a little bit. So the overview is, so we're in Persia. The Persian king had asked his wife, Queen Vashti, to come down to a party he was having, and she refused. And you had mentioned earlier that there's thoughts that could have been she was expected to do a striptease or something.
Yeah, 'ca
inappropriate.
in the text that we have, it says, "Come down wearing your crown," and that said this guy, the Hebrew guy, he said and that's all she was supposed to be wearing, just her crown, and I said, "Well, good good for her."
I mean, yeah, I don't think we give Vashti enough credit that she said no, and, she could have been killed or all this, but she's deposed, so she's no longer the queen, and then they go on the hunt for the next queen, and that's how Esther is chosen. But she's an orphan Jewish exile living with her uncle, who is Mordecai, and, they go throughout the land just gathering up the most beautiful women of the land, and she is beautiful, and she gets selected, but they don't know about her lineage. They don't know she's a Jew because they've kinda kept that under wraps.
I
And
didn't know I had a question, is Mordecai her uncle or is he her cousin? Because in verse 7 in chapter 2, he was bringing up Hadassah, that is Esther, the daughter of his uncle.
I always thought she was his
I
niece.
mean, I heard a preacher that preach that it was that Mordecai's her uncle, but look at verse 7 in chapter 2. It says the daughter of his uncle. So who is the daughter of your uncle? Wouldn't that be a cousin? I'm just curious.
Yeah, I guess it could be a cousin. Mordecai adopted her and raised her as his own daughter.
I think we see
You
the
know what
word
you know what it could be like? You know how, there's a big age difference
mhm,
between with dad? Like, my dad's siblings, they're technically my cousins, but I view them as uncles because 'cause they're so much older.
mhm,
I feel like that's what we got going on here. So they're
mhm.
technically cousins, but since
Age
he's
difference.
older, age
Yeah,
difference, he probably fits the
Uncle
so
Bill.
but yeah, good
Okay,
catch.
just
So Esther's chosen, and she has to go through all these treatments and everything. And then in that, another piece of the puzzle is that Mordecai ends up foiling an assassination attempt on Xerxes.
which
And
really comes into play. That's very important.
comes into play later, but nothing gets done at that moment. He's not really celebrated or anything. But also, Mordecai refuses to bow to this arrogant man named Haman, and he is an official who works for Xerxes. He's
And
a
he
high up
is
official.
talk about prideful. If you were going to give a prize for being prideful, not that you would ever do that, of course, but man, would he fit the bill? Talk about puffed up. Think of a puffer fish. I mean, he is so puffed up with himself. And also with Mordecai, I think you see a contrast. God is so good at contrast. We see Mordecai being humble. He didn't get credit. That reminds me of the plaque on Ronald Reagan's desk. It's amazing to what we could accomplish if we didn't worry about who got the credit. So Mordecai saved the king's life, but was fine with not getting credit. Everybody wants credit. But and then you have Haman, who is the polar opposite of Mordecai, and it shows up so well. It's just like, well, black print on a white page. You've got to have contrast, and it really highlights Mordecai. So sorry, I had to
That's
insert that.
yeah, and so again, so Mordecai refuses to bow to Haman, like you said, very arrogant. And because of that, Haman wants retribution, and he convinces the king to issue a decree to annihilate all the Jews. So because one man wouldn't bow to him, he wants to annihilate all the Jews. I feel like there's something else that maybe we don't know, but I
Well,
feel like that's if someone it's basically like if you're walking if you've been in a play and someone doesn't clap for you, you're like, "Okay, that's it. I
you're
want
going down.
it looks like you have some Hawaiian, I'm gonna annihilate all the Hawaiians," or something. But it's like,
Well,
why pick it's just weird that he picks an entire race of people because one person wouldn't bow.
well, this shows you how powerful. You know that book you loaned to me, As a Man Thinketh. Oh my goodness, that fits Haman perfectly. He thought about it, then he stewed on it, then he thought, and then that hatred just grew and grew and grew because that author says you never do anything that you didn't think about. And then your thoughts feed your thoughts. If your thoughts are negative, then negative things are going to happen, and that's your world you're going to be living. I think we call that the law of attraction, but that's where he's at, and that's what he's planting those seeds. Like, how can I get Mordecai? And then say, I'm not just gonna get Mordecai, I'm gonna get every one of those Jews, and he's just it it's growing because we think goodness grows. You plant that and then the ripple effect, we don't often think that the ripple effect can be negative.
Whatever you water grows. It's just like a principle. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a natural law, basically. And you're
Remember
right,
that
whatever you give attention to, whatever you feed
what
will
is the
grow.
Native American quote that says, two natures beat within
Beat
my
within my breast. One is
one I
cursed, one
one
is
is
blessed. One is cursed, one is blessed. One I love, the other I hate. The one I feed will dominate.
there you go. And that's what's happening. I mean, and he's feeding it, I mean, I don't know, feeding it fertilizer because it's growing really fast. Because he's even so after a while, your thoughts will manifest themselves into action. So he builds this gallows. I mean, he has a plan for Mordecai, which is so funny because, I think God probably laughs when we make plans. I think he does, probably was laughing, you know, but apparently Mordecai was not worried. He wasn't worried. But here he's building this huge, I mean, it even gives the how high up it was, and everybody knew about it.
I think he was a little worried because he did go to Esther or sent a note to Esther, and he's the one that really prodded Esther to make
Well,
a
that's true,
decision.
yeah.
So go ahead. So now we're back to where you were talking about this decision. So explain that. Explain where we're at now, because she risked her life.
Yeah, and she does it her way. He tells her the problem. I think we do that with kids sometimes. We tell them how to solve the problem. That's not what we should do. We should say, "Here's the problem. You're making a D in history. What are we gonna do about that? What are you gonna do about that?" So he tells her the problem. And then, he it and think about this. Just earlier, like 6 months ago, he said not to tell anyone she was a Jew, right? So he told her that, and then now he's saying, "Okay, well, if you keep quiet," now he's telling her to speak up, but she does the banquet thing. So she plans, which is, I don't know if anybody else sees the humor in that, but it's kinda like giving Haman some rope, gives him a lot of rope. He gets even more puffed up because the queen has invited him to this banquet and all that, and when you read that the first time, you're like, "Why is she inviting him to a banquet? Why doesn't she just go tell?" But we live in this fast-paced microwave society where it's everything instant, instant. No, she does, to me, she's just calm in that. What did you think about that whole process?
I feel like she was wanting, I think she was feeling it out. I think she was like, "Okay," and maybe just the moment didn't seem right or something about the timing, and so she just like, "You know what? Let's do it again." I don't know if she had it all planned out where I'm gonna do multiple banquets, and this is what I feel like in life, it doesn't work out that way. I feel like we just have to take a step of faith and then kind of feel it out and pray about it. Okay, what is this the direction? Is this a direction? And I feel like she does that. You're right. She's very calm.
I think
And
remember what Jonah says in our Ecclesiastes podcast. He said, um, "Wise people are calm not because they know all the answers, but they know the God who does." And she knows that God is going to take care of this. And I think that the verse that everyone kind of jumps out when you say Esther is verse 14 in chapter 4. For if you keep silent at this time, relief and deliverance will rise for the Jews from another place. But you and your father's house will perish. And who knows whether you have not come to this kingdom for such a time as this. So, I mean, that's so powerful for such a time as this. So, I think we don't appreciate our backstory. Everybody has a backstory, and God's not going to waste any suffering that you've done. It will be useful. I mean, most of my story is out of struggle, and that's the story He wants. He, when you're going through struggle, you need to ask, what is God wanting me to learn from this? And I wonder how God's going to use this because He will use it. How's he gonna use it? We have to be like Esther, and we have to trust him because his timing is different, and it will be different, but wow. And I just think I would like that for such a time as this to come across my mind. Does it always? No, because sometimes, we wanna wah, but for
but there's
such a
no
time as
growth.
this.
There's no growth without struggle. There's no
Yes.
growth without tension. I mean, even a seed, it's the cracking open and like it's not like so it's not sitting back in a recliner with potato chips, there's a struggle to get out of the shell.
And in America, we don't I think they did at one time, maybe long ago, like pioneer time, uh, embrace the struggle. There's a show that my daughter-in-law, um, Julie, told me about called Hope Valley, and this woman, she bought a boarding house, and she's heading west with her daughter. They get there, and it's not a boarding house. I mean, there were scams in the 18th century, I guess. I don't know. I'm just like, it's right after the Civil War, and there she is, and she's looking at it, and you want to cry for her and her daughter's just, "What are we gonna do, mama? You said we could do anything, but we can't. What are we gonna do?" And the roof's falling in and all this kinda stuff, and she says, "We will get through this," and she just rolls up her sleeves, and kinda like in, Seven Brides for Seven Brothers, the girl rolls up her sleeves and starts cleaning. I think we've talked about that. Forward motion. Go ahead, take one step at a time, and you're right. Esther was taking one step at a time. Let's see how this plays out. Let's, read the room, so to speak, or read the palace.
We do need to back up. We skipped over something very important. So even before the banquets, so you can't just walk in at this time period. You can't just walk, even though she's married to the king, she can't just walk up and say, "Hey, honey, you want to have dinner tonight?" If she has to be summoned. And so it was a huge deal for her to go and walk into the king's throne room unsummoned. And if he doesn't put his scepter out towards her, that's instant death because you don't just walk up to the king. Before she could even do the banquet, she didn't even that's why I'm saying I don't think she had it all planned out because she's like there's a verse 4:16, "If I perish, I perish." Didn't even know she's gonna live, you know?
Oh, I love that. Does that connect with Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego? God can save us, but even if he doesn't, we're still not gonna worship you.
Mhm.
If I perish, I perish. Oh, that's powerful.
So she was confident going into this room, not that she would survive, not that it would work, but she was confident in God and, "You know what? I'm doing what I'm supposed to do, whether my life is gonna end or not." And so she takes that
Mm.
that step of faith, and of course, I think, she's beautiful, an amazing person, and I think he is in love with her, I do. There is a movie called One Night with the King, which is really good. I feel like it depicts this pretty well, how she would stand out above everybody else because that if you have that calm spirit, that does stand out. Um, even though she is beautiful, I think she was picked as a queen because she had that something extra. So I do think he really likes Esther, in my opinion. And so of
Well,
course
it
he doesn't kill
says
her.
she won favor in his sight, so he held out his scepter. So I think you're right. I think God blessed that. But her willingness to say, "If I perish, I perish," is like, why did Abraham take Isaac up on the mountain to sacrifice him? Because he said, "Well, God said to. God said to do this." And he didn't think beyond that. Maybe you hit on something, sis. Maybe we think too much ahead. Maybe we should just take that next right step, like Elizabeth Elliot says. Do the next right thing and not get ahead of ourselves. I think we do kind of get ahead of ourselves.
Because then we get disappointed when it doesn't work out the way that we've planned it, when a lot of times God's plan's way better and something that we couldn't even think about. So, yeah, if we just take the next step and God, what do you want me to do? Holy Spirit, what should I do in this situation? What do you want me to know? I love that Jamie Winship question. It's not why. Why is this happening? That's a horrible question. It's what do you want me to know about the situation? Because there's always something that he wants you to know about that. And most of the time it's something that a sin or something that we're looking through the wrong lens at it. We need a prescription change essentially. So,
And we are very impatient. I mean, when you think about it. There's a book that you got me on audio, and it's Trust God, Love People. And when they got married, she had a miscarriage. She lost the baby, and she's just frantic. And she said she wanted a big family and all that. Well, you see how God bless. And at the end, there had, I think, 6 kids or something. But that struggle was real. But she used that helped her to go out, and they had a whole mission to help another country, a little country in Africa. They helped and they got some kids from there that were orphans and everything. So because of that loss, there was a gain. But I think, yeah, we always think something's wrong. And when we pray and we don't get the answer we want. Well, look at Jesus. I mean, he went to the cross. That's obedience. And was that the answer he wanted? He said, if there's another way, but he was okay with God's way. I think you're right. When Esther said, if I perish, I perish. So when we get to that point, then God will reveal. I mean, instead of revealing the whole thing, I don't even know if we could understand it. Remember when he's talking to Job? And Job was really, and then God said, well, I could tell you, but you wouldn't understand. I mean, I
Yes.
feel like we're there. We think we would understand, but
And I feel like it's done that way intentionally so that because that's how much he loves us and that's how much he wants a relationship with us. He wants us to ask him. He wants us for the next step to go to him. If he didn't want a relationship, he would lay it all out. Here's the
mhm.
plan for your life. Go follow it. Don't call me. Yeah. But we see the opposite of that.
Well, about absentee parents. He's not an absentee
No.
parent. He's present. He's present.
Yes, very present. So we've talked about quotes. What about some themes? What are some big themes or takeaways or steps that you see in this book?
Well, I come up with we reap what we sow. I wanted to be concise, but that goes with Haman. It also goes with Mordecai and Esther. I mean, it fits everybody. Not that that's original with me, but Jesus, notice how Jesus says so much in so little. I mean, he does. But we reap what we sow.
That's good.
What about you?
I guess we should talk about Haman. So Esther does have these two banquets, and finally she does reveal her identity, that she's a Jew, and she tells and then connects the dots for the king. Because I don't know how Haman convinced him to annihilate the Jews, but he seems kind of surprised. So it's like, what's really going on? I'm not sure all the behind the scenes of that. But so Esther tells everything. And then Haman, the rug was pulled out. This was not what he thought. So then he's begging the queen, falls on the queen.
Laying on her, which don't you think that's a little funny? Because what does that look like?
But of course, the king, when he comes, he took like a moment to collect himself, came back in, sees that, and he's like, "You're attacking my wife, the queen." So then what you're saying is you reap what you sow, because what Haman had built for Mordecai to kill Mordecai is what he ends up being impaled on. So
The guy that speaks up, Harbana, one of the eunuchs, he says, the gallows that Haman has prepared for Mordecai, whose word saved the king, is standing at Haman's house, 50 cubits high. So I was like, wow. And I don't know, 50 cubits is 18 inches. So, I mean, it's more gallows than you need, in other words. But I'm thinking that it's funny. And then the king immediately said, hang him on that. So when you say, if he just said cut his head off or something like that, but to have built the instrument used for your death, wouldn't that be an extra slap in the face? I mean, to me, I'm like,
so then so what we see is a reversal of fortunes, which is another theme. We see Haman killed. We see his family fortune diminish, and we see Mordecai promoted to this high position in the king's court. So what Haman meant for
ill.
it's the complete opposite
Oh,
of
yeah,
what.
and there was a part we left off where Haman had to take Mordecai through the town and say praises to Mordecai. That also happened. I mean, really, Haman, let me tell you.
Because that was funny. The king was up reading, and he was like reading the past things that had happened, and he realized that Mordecai was never rewarded for foiling that assassination attempt. And I love that he went to Haman for advice. And he's like, if you had someone that you just really wanted to promote and that really helped out the king, like, what do you think? And so Haman says everything thinking it will be for him. Well, I would put him on a donkey. I would give him your best robe. I would do all this stuff and have someone lead him through and hail out his name and all these things. And I mean, that is hilarious. Talk about, again, you reap what you sow. So I think that it's hilarious.
I mean, this book does show you God has a sense of humor because that would not, her boldness is rewarded and his deviousness is also rewarded in the way that he didn't expect.
Well, it's the fruit of what you plant, like you said.
Because
So
to
he
me,
planted seeds of hatred and he planted seeds of revenge and murder, and that's what happened to him. He
in
was
the
murdered.
in the ESV it says when he saw that Mordecai didn't bow to him, it filled him with fury. I mean, I think he was to be filled with fury because one person didn't bow. I mean, he was a troubled soul.
But
But
you're right. There's a huge thing of pride, obviously.
and the humility of Mordecai, and they very much plant that in the reader's mind, and you won't forget it because of that contrast.
I did
Esther's
have
bravery turned the tables. I like that. Turn the tables.
And have you thought of this? I need to do some more digging on it, but I thought this was an interesting thought and I need to follow it through to see. But because it never talks about her having kids or anything like that, but
Hmm.
they're saying Darius potentially could have been her and Xerxes' son, potentially. But even if he wasn't, they think that maybe she still influenced the, like, you know how the Persian kingdom funded
Oh, I never
Nehemiah.
thought about
Yeah.
that.
So they think
Oh.
maybe her influence
Mhm.
was part of that, how that turned out very favorably for
Yeah,
the
well, I
Jewish
always
people.
gave the credit to Nehemiah because I thought he was such a good guy, but yeah, we don't know the backstory, though, and there always is a backstory. Whoa, that's
Yeah.
very interesting, sis. Ah,
That she could have
never
played
thought
a
about
bigger
that.
role than we know.
Imagine. Yeah, that's kinda like
Yeah.
when you find out that Rahab is in the lineage of Christ, you're like, "Really? What happened?" And then here her faith came out, and God uses the people that are on the fringe all the time, and I think that he makes it I think we need to realize, sometimes you think, "Oh, I can't do anything." No, we can't, but God can.
But I know a guy.
Yeah, I know a guy, and he can do it, and really, you think about it, if God wanted to use the most likely candidate, he woulda used King Saul. Oh, here's King Saul, he's head and shoulders taller than everybody, but why didn't he? Because he had a little shepherd boy that his whole heart when we go to jail, we do study like a book of the Bible, but always read some Psalms because David's humility and his,
Fear of
oneness
the
with God.
Lord.
Yeah, his
Yeah.
oneness with God comes through. The girl who goes with me, the lady there, she said that's her favorite part. She said, "I love that you put the Psalms in there." I didn't used to do that. I felt like God was wanting me to do that because sometimes, uh, it can be heavy just doing, so go back to that because there is poetry in the Psalms and I think there's a closeness in the Psalms that that's what we want with God. We want that what David just pours out his soul to God. And he's a man after God's own heart. Did he make mistakes? Yeah. And I think that is here. Who knows how much pouring out she did over this whole dilemma because, yeah, he could have refused her, but he didn't. But she had to be brave enough. I love that you pulled out, if I perish, I perish. I love that.
Yeah. So some takeaways that we can is that we can take away is that we can recognize God's work in ordinary events. So
Mm.
all around our life, there's things that sometimes we don't give God the credit for, but He's working. And I, for one, do not believe in coincidences. I don't. I think those are things that are supposed to happen. And then I think from Esther, we can learn, like, step up with courage when your moment comes. So
Mm.
be ready, have that already decided in your mind that if I perish, I perish type of attitude. Trust God's sovereignty even when he seems silent. And again, we saw that he's never mentioned by name in the Bible, but but she's
In
still,
this
I
book,
mean,
in this book.
in the book of Esther, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
So, but we see Esther's trust in him. And so sometimes when we feel like there's a silence, we still just need to lean in and trust. And then the Esther, okay, this is my main takeaway, I guess. The Esther proves God never abandons his people. So we talked about these people didn't go back to Jerusalem. They stayed, but he never abandoned them. And it encourages me that when there's uncertainty or opposition, that God's always writing a story. He's always turning this whatever is intended evil into good, and he's ensuring his promises endure. So there's nothing we really need to worry about. Because even if we think it's evil or an intended evil, it is an intended evil. God can turn that for good. So we have nothing to worry about.
Well said. Very, very well said. Concise. I love it. I agree with all that, and it packs a punch that, how often when you read the Bible, you're talking about a group of people and you say they. How about let's say we or I? Because watch those pronouns. I mean, because I love that it does say, if I perish, I perish, because that's me. I'm talking to me. I I loved said, see God in ordinary events. And how often do we get too busy and too, you've had a harrowing day. Think back and say, do I see God in my day? Because if you don't see God in your day, that's why you had a harrowing day. A lot of times we just go from the one thing to the next thing. And if we slow down, I get that she was not fast. She was slow. She had a plan. She worked her plan. I mean, I think sometimes we want a checklist instead of saying, use me this day. Help me say what I need to say. Help me to have an undivided heart for God and not be. I heard Chris McCurley say, if a Christian is a fruit, what fruit would it be? I hope you wouldn't choose an orange, because here's this section. That's my family. Over here's this section. That's me going to baseball games. Over here's another section. That's a church. And he said, I hope we're a peach. And we're a peach, and our life is the peach, and the pit is God, and he's at the center. And I feel like Esther sums that up well.
That's good. Well said. So that's the kind of why this book matters. And we hope that you will go read it. You can read it in one setting. It's like 10 chapters. It's a very quick read, but very positive. I mean, you just love Esther. I mean, she is in the, what do we call that? The Help Meet Hall of Fame.
Yes, she helped she helped the king do the right thing, but also helped her people. A sidebar, we should mention that if you want a fictional read on this, Francine Rivers' Mark of the Line series, the first one
Yes.
was about something if you just look up Mark of the Line, she's the first one, and her name is Hadassah, and it's a beautiful read.
Definitely.
Do you remember that?
I
Yeah.
love that. I love the whole series. So both, and she does what's the man series called?
Well, that one is fictional, but the Sons of Encouragement those are still fictional, but Sons of Encouragement and Lineage of Grace.
And
Lineage of Grace is special because that was our first book that we read together.
Yeah. Our
So
book club.
that was
book.
that's the origin story, was that particular book. Thank you for reading with me, Kate. I appreciate you so much you helped me to dive deep, and I just look forward to having a coffee and connecting with the text. So,
Well, I'm grateful for you because I probably wouldn't be reading if it wasn't for you, because you're the one that really inspired me to get back into reading after motherhood and
yeah.
no sleep and all that. You're like, so thank you. This has been a journey, and it's
I feel
helped
like
me grow a lot.
that was God's timing, wasn't it? His timing is impeccable. So at the right time. If I'd ask you when you were staying up all night, you said, "What?
Read what? Yeah. Well, that is a wrap on the Book of Esther.
We thank you greatly for lending an ear. We know you have ears to hear, and may God be praised for that. And we give him the glory of this. And we hope you have a fruitful day and that you see God in all the things that come your way. And let's connect
To reflect.
Catch you on the next one.